The top 1% of earners in the US make over $642,000 per year. And when it comes to investments, the top 1% have almost $39 million in investable assets. But what's even more impressive is that the top 0.1% make almost 30 times more than the average American household. These people are making around $18.7 million per year. And for investments, they have over $1.5 billion. Now, if you ask most people about the chances of them becoming a millionaire, they will say that there's no way that they will ever become one. But the reality is that the odds are actually much better than you might think. So today, we're going to talk about exactly what your chances are and what you can do to maximize those odds. Now, when it comes to the chances of you becoming a millionaire, there are two ways to look at it. The first way is simply from a probability standpoint, meaning what percentage of people out there actually make it to $1 million or more. And the second approach is from a finance perspective, which is what are the actual odds that you will end up with $1 million based on your starting point. So first, let's talk about the overall odds, and for this we'll be looking at the US specifically. So according to the Federal Reserve, there are roughly 130 million households in the US, and of those about 38% have zero or a negative net worth. And of the remaining 82 million households with positive net worth, only 5% of them have a net worth of more than $1 million. So when you do the math, you get that about 4.1% of all US households have 1 million or more in net worth. Now, on the surface, this seems like a really small number, but when you realize that there are 130 million households out there, that translates to 5.3 million millionaires in the US. That is still a lot of people. And actually, according to a recent report by WealthX, there are now 11.2 million millionaires worldwide. In fact, they estimate that there are so many millionaires out there that if you were to line them up, it would be a line over 160,000 miles long or over 60 round trips to the moon. And while that is an impressive number, the unfortunate reality is that the vast majority of us will probably never come close to having $1 million. Now, the good news is that the odds are actually much better than you might think. For example, if you were born in the US, there's about a 10% chance that you'll die in any given year. And if you were born outside of the US, there's about an 8% chance. So if we use these numbers, the odds of you reaching the age of 80 is about 13%. And those odds increase to 22% if you reach the age of 90. Now, if you actually live past 90, then the odds start to decrease rapidly. So if you use the average life expectancy of 78.8 years old, you have roughly a 16 chance of living to that age. And if you live past that, then your odds drop down to about 8%. So, put another way, you have a greater chance of becoming a millionaire than you do of living past 80 years old. Now, the same thing also applies to retirement. In fact, the Social Security Administration reports that the average retired worker receives about $1,800 per month. And according to their data, about 22% of people end up collecting Social Security benefits. Now, in terms of when people end up collecting their benefits, they found that the average age was 67.2. So if you take these numbers and plug them into our formula, you'll find that your odds of collecting Social Security are actually better than your odds of becoming a millionaire. But let's shift gears and talk about the second approach, which is the finance approach. For this, we're going to look at what it would actually take for you to end up with $1 million. And for this, I want to share a few real examples. So for starters, we have Liz. Liz is a 30-year-old woman who currently has a salary of $60,000 per year. And she wants to know how much she needs to save each month in order to retire by the age of 65 with $1 million. Now for this, we'll assume that she is able to get a 6 return on her savings and that inflation averages 2%. So after doing the math, you would find that Liz would need to save about $140 per month in order to reach $1 million. Next, we have Alex. Alex is a 25-year-old man who currently makes $80,000 per year, and he wants to know how much he needs to save each month in order to retire by the age of 65 with $1 million. Now, for this, we'll assume that he gets a 6 return on his savings and that inflation averages 2%. So after doing the math, you would find that Alex would need to save about $100 per month in order to reach 1 million. Then we have Cindy. Cindy is a 45-year-old woman who currently makes $120,000 per year, and she wants to know how much she needs to save each month in order to retire by the age of 65 with $1 million. Now for this, we'll assume that she is able to get a 6 return on her savings and that inflation averages 2%. So after doing the math, you would find that Cindy would need to save about $250 per month in order to reach 1 million. So as you can see here, the younger you are when you start saving, the easier it is to reach your goals. This is why it's always best to start investing as soon as possible, because time is truly the eighth wonder of the world. In fact, if you're willing to invest $100 per month and you get a 6 return, then you would end up with the following nest egg. If you start by the age of 20, then you would end up with $1.2 million by the age of 65. If you start by the age of 30, then you would end up with $850,000 by the age of 65. If you start by the age of 40, then you would end up with $525,000 by the age of 65. And if you start by the age of 50, then you would end up with $260,000 by the age of 65. This shows just how powerful time is when it comes to investing, and that's why it's so important to start as soon as possible. Now, at the end of the day, the truth is that there's no surefire way to become a millionaire. In fact, some people will never even try because they don't think it's possible. But the reality is that if you just save a small portion of your income each month and invest it in the market, then you'll be surprised at just how much your money can grow over time. And while the road to becoming a millionaire is different for everyone, there are some general tips that you can follow to improve your odds. First, you want to set clear financial goals for yourself. This means knowing how much you want to save, when you want to retire, and what you want to do with your money. Without clear goals, it's very difficult to stay motivated and on track. Second, you want to create a budget and stick to it. This means tracking your expenses, cutting back on unnecessary spending, and finding ways to save more money. Third, you want to diversify your investments and be patient. Don't try to get rich quick by investing in risky assets or chasing high returns. Instead, focus on building a well-balanced portfolio that can weather the ups and downs of the market. And finally, you want to educate yourself about personal finance and investing. There are countless books, podcasts, and websites that can teach you the basics of investing and help you make smarter decisions with your money. By following these tips, you can improve your odds of becoming a millionaire and achieving your financial goals. Remember that it takes time and discipline to become a millionaire, but it is possible if you stay focused and committed. And if you enjoyed this video, then please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.